Today, we're jumping back to a time when the fight for a kingdom wasn't just about armies and swords, but about words and rhymes. We're talking about John Dryden's legendary poem Absalom and Achitophel, and how it became one of the most brilliant and savage political takedowns in history.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, right? How can a bunch of rhyming lines on a piece of paper actually become a political weapon? A weapon so powerful it could shake a nation to its core? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out.
So, let's set the scene. The year is 1681. England is an absolute powder keg, just waiting to explode. The whole country is so divided, it feels like another civil war is just around the corner. But the first real shot in this conflict? Well, it didn't come from a cannon. It came from a printing press.
To really get why this poem hit so hard, you first have to understand the crisis that was tearing England apart. The entire kingdom was basically walking on a knife's edge.
Okay, so it all kicks off in 1678 with something called the Popish Plot. This was a completely made-up story about a Catholic conspiracy to assassinate the king. Total fiction, but it caused mass panic and whipped up this intense anti-Catholic fear across the country. That fear then directly fueled something called the Exclusion Crisis, where a political party, the Whigs, tried to legally block the king's brother, James, who was openly Catholic, from ever inheriting the throne. By 1681, the country was split right down the middle.
And these are the main players in this whole drama. You've got King Charles II, who doesn't have a legitimate kid to take over. That makes his brother James the next in line, but his Catholicism is a huge problem for Protestant England. Then you have the Duke of Monmouth, the king's illegitimate son. He's Protestant, handsome, super popular with the people. And stirring the pot is the Earl of Shaftesbury, a master politician who's pushing hard to get Monmouth on the throne instead of James. So the stage is set. The players are all in place, and right into the middle of this political firestorm, a new kind of weapon appears. One made of paper, ink, and pure genius. And here comes our guy, John Dryden. He's the poet laureate, basically the king's official poet and a die-hard supporter of the monarchy. He's not just sitting on the sidelines. He sees what the Whigs are doing as incredibly dangerous, a path that leads straight to chaos and another civil war. So he decides to fight back with the best tool he has, his poetry.
He writes this poem, Absalom and Achitophel, and here's the brilliant part. It's an allegory. What he does is he takes a famous, tragic story from the Bible about a son who rebels against his king and father, and he uses it as a perfect mirror to comment on and completely tear apart the political drama happening in England right at that moment.
All right, so cracking the code of this allegory is where you see the real genius of Dryden's attack. It's how he turns a Bible story into a political bombshell.
For anyone reading this back in 1681, this was not subtle at all. It was crystal clear. The wise but troubled King David? That's King Charles II. The handsome, charming son Absalom, who gets talked into rebellion? That's the Duke of Monmouth. And the wicked, manipulative advisor, Achitophel, whispering poison in his ear, a direct and absolutely brutal caricature of the Earl of Shaftesbury.
And this is what makes Dryden's strategy so incredibly sharp. He doesn't just call his targets evil. No, he portrays Monmouth, Absalom, as this tragic hero whose popularity and charm curdle into vanity. And he paints Shaftesbury, Achitophel, as a man of incredible intelligence whose genius is totally corrupted by his insatiable hunger for power. He takes their biggest strengths and twists them into fatal flaws. Okay, so we know the code. We know who he's going after. But let's look at the mechanics. How did the writing itself make this attack so devastatingly effective?
The secret weapon is the heroic couplet. It's just two rhyming lines, perfectly balanced, with this really confident, elegant rhythm. This structure makes everything he says sound so authoritative. It turns his vicious insults into what feel like calm, measured, and final judgments. Each couplet lands with this incredible precision and weight.
Just listen to this jab at another one of the king's enemies. On the surface, it sounds like a compliment, right? Wow, this guy is like all of humanity rolled into one. But what Dryden is actually saying is that the man has no core, no principles, no real identity at all. He just changes with the wind. It's a masterclass in smiling to someone's face while stabbing them in the back.
So you see how it all fits together. He uses the sacred biblical story to make his enemies look like villains against God. He creates these mock portraits that twist their virtues into vices. And he wraps the whole thing in this witty, elegant verse that makes it all sound incredibly convincing. He basically turned a political argument into a piece of unforgettable, powerful art, a weapon that could actually change how people thought.
But the story gets even crazier. Dryden's poem wasn't just a commentary on his time. In a really chilling way, it turned out to be a prophecy.
Just 4 years after the poem hit the streets, 1685.
The tragic story Dryden laid out as a warning, it came true. The real-life Absalom, the Duke of Monmouth, actually did lead a rebellion to try and take the throne. And just like in the biblical story that inspired the poem, it was a total disaster. The rebellion was crushed, and Monmouth himself was captured and executed. Life literally imitated art.
And that just leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Dryden used an ancient story to make sense of his present. So what about ours? How many of the political battles we see today, fights about power, loyalty, ambition, betrayal, are really just the same old human stories, just dressed up in new clothes? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the oldest stories are the ones that tell us the most about who we are right now.